In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of variables we need to get familiar with as we begin our strength training journey. So far, we have discussed a number of exercise variables, like reps. So remember, you can do 1 rep to as many reps as possible. For strength goals, we typically focus on the 1 to 6 range. But this is after you have experience with the 8 to 12 range. We usually don't attempt 1, 2, or 3 reps without a certified personal trainer acting as a spotter. Reps in reserve. We talked about the type of training that takes your repetitions to failure. Doing a set that includes as many reps as possible. However, in strength training, it's not necessary that we train in this way. In strength training, we usually leave 1 or 2 reps in reserve. This means that we complete our last repetition with good form, and while challenging, we usually believe that we could have done at least 1 or 2 more if we had to. Weights. If we have the choice, we want to choose a weight that allows us to perform our set number of repetitions, with the last repetition becoming challenging to complete with good form. That is, if our set number of repetitions is 12 for this week, and we can perform more than 12 repetitions quite easily, this weight is too light. A weight becomes too heavy if we cannot pick it up with good form. Sets. You can do as little as 1 set to as many as you like, most commonly 2 or 3. As a beginner, we can start with 1 set. If you have time, you can do 2 or 3. As an intermediate or advanced lifter, multiple sets allow us to increase the volume of our training, and volume is important for progressive overload and for increasing our muscle mass, also called hypertrophy training. Frequency. We want to perform strength training at least twice per week. If you're new to strength training, of course we can start with once per week. For best results, we'll work our way up to 2 sessions per week. If you're starting off, leave 48 hours between sessions to allow for recovery and adaptation. As you advance and you're recovering well, so you're sleeping well at night, you'll be able to increase your frequency if you wish. Type. At Stronger at Home, we are focused on building muscle strength, bone strength, and joint strength. Following a solid foundation in strength, we can progress to power training or even high impact training, which are both excellent for falls prevention and bone health. The other fitness cornerstone for health and longevity is aerobic training, things like running, cycling, and swimming. Performing both resistance and aerobic training is key to healthy aging. Time. In strength training, there is no time variable. But since guidelines suggest working each of the major muscle groups twice per week, this session is usually around 45 minutes. But you can absolutely start with as little as 20 minutes and progress in time in the coming weeks and months. It's better to do something rather than nothing. So if you only have 20 minutes to spare, you can still get your strength training session in. Don't let perfection stop you from progress. Exercises. We discussed a number of exercises that should be included. In addition to the number of exercises, exercises can become more complex as you become more comfortable with the movement patterns. For example, moving from a 2-legged squat to a 1-legged squat. This is quite useful when you have limited access to free weights. So instead of using free weights, you can increase the complexity of your exercises and increase the percentage of your body mass that you're using. So instead of doing an incline push-up, you move to a full push-up. Form and range of motion. With practice, your form or technique and your range of motion and your confidence will soar. So if the movement feels a little awkward now, just keep practicing. Take your movements to full range of motion if you can. If you have access to a personal trainer, you can always ask them to take a look at your form if you're not quite sure. Tempo. You can lift and lower your weight at several speeds or tempos. For beginners, we usually take a slower and more controlled tempo, such as 2 seconds up and 2 seconds down. Moving a weight slower and in control is harder than when moving your weight with momentum to move it fast. Moving or attempting to move at a faster tempo is beneficial for power development, which is also important for aging well. But this is something we can revisit for the intermediate and advanced stages in our exercise journey. Rest. With strength training, we typically take a 1 to 5 minute rest between our sets. It's important to rest as long as you need. You want to feel refreshed and ready to perform your next set with good form. We don't want to lift heavy weights when we are too fatigued to keep good form. Deload weeks. We need to take a week off from heavy weights every 4 or 8 weeks or so. For this deload or recovery week, we want to drop down to lighter weights or drop our volume down. So if you're doing multiple sets, drop down to 1 set. Finally, progressive overload is required for any evidence-based strength training program. Progressing your training ensures you continue to see health and performance benefits and adaptations. The easiest way to do this is every 4 to 6 weeks, gradually increase your load or your weights used. That said, you can also gradually increase many of the other variables we have just discussed, like increasing the number of sets or the frequency of your training sessions. As beginners, we can start with just one gradual increase. Most advanced lifters will have increased or optimized most of these variables at some point in their strength training journey.